Out there. Who actually came here to see me tonight? First of all, thank you. No, I didn't come to this knowing I was going to kind of be the warm-up act for Christine. So that actually sets a second goal for me tonight. Not only to warm up the crowd, but also to convince you that I'm the proper choice come November. That being said, I just want to let you guys know, from now on I'm going to refer to Christine as the siege machine, because without a siege machine, you can't take down a castle. Now, since you're all in a great mood and ready to put your hands together, I'm going to ask you to put your hands together one more time for the Constitution of the United States. I think we all know that when all is said and done, it's not about me, it's not about Michelle Long, it's not about Glenn Earhart, it's not about Rose Izzo, and it's not about Earl Auckland. It's really about the Constitution. And the Constitution is the solution. So, as long as we're talking about the Constitution, I'd like to ask you a quick question. Anybody here can sum up what the Constitution does for us?
Freedom. Limit government.
Thank you. Who was that? Thank you, Will. Limited federal government. That is what this document is about. In fact, James Madison wrote Federalist 45. The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which remain with the state governments are numerous and indefinite. There's not much gray area there, folks. No. However, I was getting ready to write a speech, and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to write a speech. I'm going to share some life experiences with you. When I was in the Air Force, I started out my career right over here at Dover as a crew chief, and I cross-trained into flight engineering. While I was, my first assignment was at Tinker Air Force Base. Everybody know what AWACS is? Anybody not know what an AWACS is? Okay. An AWACS is a jet that's got a big, huge saucer dish on the back of it. Okay? So now everybody knows what I'm talking about? So I'm in the waiting room one day, and somebody comes in, and we're talking about it, and he goes, I've got a story to tell you. I said, okay, shoot it. He says, one of our airplanes happened to be over here at Dover Air Force Base. I said, okay. He said, and you know how that pattern goes out? And now I happen to know the surrounding area. He said, there's a little town called Magnolia. I said, yeah, I've been to Magnolia. He said, our AWACS jet took off, and the command post got a phone call. Some lady said, listen, I don't want to panic you guys, but a UFO just took off from your... So after I got the tears out of my eyes, I was laughing really good, and said a few choice words, what happened to Magnolia? It dawned on me where that woman's perspective had to be. To see that jet and think that dish was carrying that airplane and not the other way around. And since then, I tried to relate to people, it's all really about perception. Even the right versus left, it's about perception. I had a gentleman came to one of my Delaware days, and he wasn't there obviously to see me, like many of you were. But he came up and he said, so what do you go by? I said, well, I'm a Libertarian Party candidate, and he looked as confused as about most of you do. And I said, well, I'm a strict constitutionalist. And he had this look over his face. I don't know how to describe it other than I hate you. He said, that is an evil document. And you, wait, let me tell you, he did have a justification for it. Let me finish. And he said, and you, sir, are trying to exalt the Constitution and wrap yourself in it so that you may be exalted as well. And I said, what? And I thought, well, okay, I'm in the presence of total insanity, but let's hear this one out. And he said, that document promotes slavery. And I said, no, it doesn't. He said, yes, it does. And I thought, well, okay, maybe I better shut up. Maybe he knows what he's talking about. Because I don't remember reading that. So I pulled out my copy of the Constitution, and I said, would you mind showing me where? So he gets into Article 1. Where it talks about representatives in Section 2. And he gets to a line where it talks about representatives and the direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union, blah, blah, blah. Getting on to it, including those bound and shall be determined by adding the whole number of free persons, including those bound for service of term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, and 3/5 of all other persons. Now, even though this was changed by the 14th Amendment, he still thought this document was evil because it kept it in there. But I went back and I looked at this later after I just said, well, actually what happened at that point is I said, okay, now that I've heard you out, you want to hear my rebuttal? And he said, no. And walked away. So I took my little Constitution and went back and I sat down and started thinking about this. And I thought, here we are in 1787, and yet our forefathers had the forethought not to refer to them as property, but as persons. This is probably the first legal document in the world at that time that referred to slaves as persons and not property. Talk about a building block to moving on to the end of slavery. So, a week ago, last Friday, I'm at a Rotary Club meeting, and Tom Carter was there.
Ouch!
Yeah, Tom told us about healthcare and how wonderful the healthcare bill is. And that rattles on for a while, and I can't stand it, I'm shaking. I got my copy of the Constitution out, and I'm just waiting. And he doesn't know who I am yet, so I go over and stand by the side and drink my coffee and just bide my time. He started asking for questions. I raised my hand.
Whoop.
And he made a mistake going, you sir. I said, this is the Constitution. Have you seen it before? And he assured me he had. I said, well, based on that, there's 18 enumerated powers in this Constitution. How do you justify what you guys have done with healthcare? He replied to me with Matthew 25, verses 34 through 46. And for those of you who aren't aware, that's the one that says, what you've done for the least of my brothers, have you done for me? And it was a moral imperative to save his almighty soul, that if he didn't do that, he would never get through the pearly gates. However, he wasn't doing that for the least of his brothers. He was forcing me to do something for the least of his brothers. And I don't think that applies here. But it gets better from there. Because I wasn't willing to let him say that. This is where I got in trouble because I didn't keep my mouth shut. I said, but you being a naval veteran, and me being an Air Force veteran, and a flyer no less, so we should be talking the same language. You know as well as I do, everybody has their job to do. Stop doing the state's job. He said, right, and they called on the next person. The next guy called on and said, Senator Carter, the Constitution guarantees me the right to pursue happiness. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all the work that you've done to help that. When the meeting was over, I took my little copy of the Constitution, I stuck my card in it, and I walked up to that gentleman and I said, sir, can I give you this? He was fighting that. His hands were shaking. He took it from me. He said, I don't need this document. I know more about this document than you'll ever know. I've studied this document. And he threw it back at me. Oh, he hit the boss. That was all. So. I said, well, sir, he quoted the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution. The conversation went steadily downhill from that point. And we ended up, maybe I just had to tell him, okay, well, I'll agree to disagree with you, and thank you for the lively conversation and the way it went. But it dawned on me that the next day I was driving to Delaware Day. All these seem to happen right around Delaware Day. For those of you who don't know, I do once a month. I'm in all 3 counties just to meet my constituents. So anyway, I was sitting there thinking about this argument I had with Jim, and it dawned on me, his answer was lazy. Versus doing the work and getting in there, getting in the document and actually finding a real argument for their position, he just tried to berate me. He just tried to tell me I was an idiot and it wasn't worth talking to. And when I didn't back down, he got more angry and more angry and more angry until he finally walked away. But it was lazy. And that's the whole left perspective. And once again, this brings us back to perspective. It's laziness versus getting in there, rolling up your sleeves and doing the work to solve our problems at our level. They throw it over the wall to the federal government where it does not belong.